Hello everybody, Jake your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw, it's Monday. On Mondays, we do tier lists, and on Wednesdays, we wear pink.
Joe McCarthy, Richard Nixon, Studebaker, Television, North Korea, South Korea, Marilyn Monroe. Ryan started the fire!
Empoleon just hit Eos Island, and boy did it ever. So I want to do a brand new fresh tier list for everyone right here. Our tiers, we have our God tier where only one Pokemon is going to go. We're not friggin' Norse around here. We have our S tier. These Pokemon are extremely good and possibly warranting a ban once you're in Master Rank. We have our A plus and A tier. I have a little delineation here just so I can talk about ones that I think are a bit better than others, but in general, extremely good Pokemon that are good in a lot of different matchups. We have our B tier. Still got the B tier. The B tier are Pokemon that I think are fine, sometimes countered. The C tier are Pokemon that I think are also alright in some situations, but more often countered by some of the picks on the opposing side. And then we have our D tier, our Decidueye Memorial tier, a tier named after Decidueye when it was so bad, and when it came out, it needed its own tier. Now, I honestly don't know if I'm going to put any Pokemon into our D tier. We're going to have to see as we go. Oh, maybe there are a couple I can think of right now. But in general, I think the meta is relatively balanced and good. I also want to address something at the top here of our tier list. Recently, another Pokemon Unite content creator and someone who claims to be very good at solo queue, Chris Heroes, said he was confused by my tier list because he couldn't understand that I didn't have delineation between top and bottom and a jungle tier list. And I'll actually talk about jungle near the end of this tier list and make something here for you. For all of those who can't understand it, if your Pokemon has a green background or gold background, I would not recommend a single one of them head into the central area. The central area will more often be taken by attackers, all-rounders, and speedsters, and I will talk about that as we go through the tier list. But there isn't a single defender or supporter that I would put in the central area. So if you see me put Blissey up into the A plus or S tier, don't think that's something you can take into the center. Hopefully, Chris can understand that, and we can move on with our tier list from here. How I'm going to rank all of these Pokemon is their general power level, and I rank them kind of against each other by role, so you can see something like, for instance, Delphox. If I put Delphox in the A plus tier, and I put Gardevoir in our A tier, I say relatively, that's where these Pokemon are, and against each other, that's kind of where I would put them, right? If that's how I rank them. And I might rank them somewhat similar to that. That is what we're looking at here in this tier list. Again, I could talk a little bit more about jungle later, but in general, green, no. Yellow, no. Green does not mean go in the jungle, and neither does yellow. It kind of blue means go in the center. All right, let's get into our tier list. All right, let's start our tier list off with our speedsters right here. In general, most all of these speedsters are quite good. I think they're all doing really well in the meta right now. There are some that I think are doing better than others, and you'll kind of see that split up here on this tier list. Most of them you could definitely play center. A few of them actually work pretty well in lane too. Like Dodrio works pretty great in lane. So does Galarian Rapidash. You know, honestly, any of these, as soon as you kind of hit their first break point, they're fine. Darkrai pretty good in lane, but they all also excel in that central area here. So if I were to kind of break these Pokemon up right now, let's start with one that I think is unbelievably good, and that's going to be Absol. I think Absol is one of the best things going in the game right now. So fast, it clears the center incredibly quick, makes it to lane, and helps your team win a fight super early. I think Absol is an extremely good Pokemon in the current meta. Another Pokemon that I think is doing really well with that same kind of thought process is Scyther. Scyther clears so quick. So, of course, if you were to have coordination with your team, right, you're in a 5-stack, there are many different considerations you could make, but playing in less coordinated games, trios, duos, and solos, Pokemon like these absolutely destroy everything out there. They make their way through the center really quick, they get to lane, and they start to dominate. They're really hard to shut down in the hands of a skilled player. A lot of speedsters are like this. Dodrio is a Pokemon I'd probably put either A plus or maybe even S on this map. Dodrio might also be an S tier. In fact, it's really hard to say many of these speedsters are not extremely high tier on this new map, in my opinion. I would put Talon probably an A plus. Good. It doesn't have as incredible of a clear speed as some of these others, and then using Fly to clear can be a little annoying as it starts to level. But I mean, when I say a little annoying, I'm really splitting hairs here. I think it's incredibly strong and does very well with all the experience, and you know, the ability to move around the map in some pretty impressive ways. Dodrio, same kind of thing. Meowscarada, let's see. Okay, I'd put Zoroark probably an A plus. I'm gonna try to keep the high ones up here. I'm gonna put Zoroark an A plus. I'm gonna put Leafeon an A plus. Zoroark in the hands of a skilled Zoroark, still one of the scariest things in the entire game. Leafeon, really good. It's the funny thing about Leafeon is it's never had a good win rate in the ranked ladder, but I do think with the extra experience, this thing is pretty dang incredible right now. Interestingly enough, I thought Leafeon would be doing a little better in the meta compared to things like Absol, Scyther, and Dodrio, but I actually think the other speedsters are keeping up with it in a really interesting way because Leafeon isn't getting as much of an advantage from clearing center a little early. Everything is clearing center really fast and making it to lane and giving you a lot of different options, right? Do you head to the Natus? Do you head back to lane? Darkrai I think is good. I think you don't need to play at center, which is nice. You can play it in lane, pretty cool. I would probably keep this one A. Meowscarada I think is okay. Like, comparing it to these other speedsters, it's not my favorite right now. Taking away some of the grass hurts Trailblaze a little bit. I haven't found it to be the absolute best on the map. I'm going to put it in our B tier. Still a good solo carry, but I don't think it compares to the rest of these speedsters. Zeraora is also okay. It's strong. It's strong enough. I mean, this thing is just very, very powerful once it gets online. So the interesting thing about it, though, is I do think there are a lot of other Pokemon that would like that center area a little better, and I don't really love it in lane. I'm also going to put it here in our B tier. Gengar, I think, is doing pretty good on the new map, specifically the Hex Sludge build. The reason behind this being you are able to quickly rip through objectives, and now that there are essentially 3 on the map and more areas of experience, I think Gengar does pretty well with it. I do think Shadow Ball Dream Eater does a little worse on this map, and there aren't as many places to hide and ambush your opponents, but I still think it does pretty good. Galarian Rapidash, this is probably my hottest take of the tier list. And it's not even that hot of a take. I'm just going to put it at the top of our B tier right here. I do think Galarian Rapidash is still good, but man, I don't know why, and this could just be me, that nerf that it got, while it is minor on paper, I feel like it was actually kind of considerable. Like, I run into so many fights where I know just a little extra damage and I would have had the KOs, and now I'm not seeing those as much. Still a really good speedster. I think every single speedster in the game is very playable and strong on the new map specifically. Let's talk about defenders here. Why not? Let's go to our defenders. All right, let's talk defenders. Defenders, one of the most important roles in the entire game. I really do think a team without a defender is pretty rough. Like, compared to supports, like, both are insanely impactful in a match of Unite, but boy, a team without a defender sometimes just feels like you can't get anything done. In general, I don't think there is a bad defender in the game. There are just some that I think are a little better than others right now. If I'm looking at all the defenders, probably the top few, gosh, there's so many good ones here. Like, okay, Crustle, Snorlax, Trevenant, Umbreon. I mean, there's so many good ones. I'm trying to think which ones, like, to me, stand out as, like, the absolute best. I feel like Slowbro and Ho-Oh are both kind of in this conversation as well as, like, some of the best in the game. Mamo is still definitely there. Lapras is really good with crazy amounts of sustain. I don't know if there's any defender that I feel like is so unbelievably broken they need to be banned or put into our S tier. I love Trevenant right now. I think it's so strong. It's so annoying to deal with. It carries pretty hard. But I really don't think there is a bad defender. In fact, I have to say, like, I'm going to move Greedent up to our A+ tier here. The thing about Greedent is I feel like as a map disruptor, it is so dang good on this new map. But in a stereotypical defender role, it isn't super good. I'm kind of thinking, like, I'm looking at, like, what I would most like to have on my team, and it probably goes, it's probably like Trevenant, Umbreon, Snorlax, Crustle, but honestly, any of them are amazing. And then as we move down to our A tier here, Ho-Oh, just such a bully, crazy Unite move. Slowbro, incredibly powerful, great in lane, which is really important on this map, and with a great Unite. Mamo, same thing. Lapras kind of plays a little bit more like Trevenant. You know, it has this like insane amount of sustain, and on top of that, it also can disrupt your opponents in some pretty good ways. Blastoise and Goodra, I think, are both good. Blastoise is probably closer to A in here. Maybe the only defender that I have like kind of low is Goodra. I don't think it's bad. I'm sure its win rate is not incredible right now. It just doesn't seem to compare to some of the others, and it's a little easier to play around. The interesting thing about this is if you're a newer player, you probably look at Goodra as one of the more broken things in the entire game. And you might understand why something like Snorlax is particularly high, but Snorlax is just such an incredible tank. Block is broken, the amount of HP it gives you. Like, that shield is insane. The displacement's crazy. Crustle, I mean, obviously it won Worlds for a reason. Umbreon, I still think, is extremely solid. I don't know if any of the defenders, like, really feel like they're completely S tier for me, though. However, if you wanted to argue that a few of the top here move up to S, fine. If you wanted to say you could move a couple down to B and move Goodra to C, fine. But I don't think there really is a bad defender. And in fact, like, Goodra, like, it's great in lane. It's really strong. It's just a little easy to play around, I guess, as the match goes on. It's kind of predictable. But still a really good defender. Like, every defender, I think, is really, really good. And I would probably look at them about like this. But all of them are incredible. All of them, including Greedent, you can play all of them, obviously, in top or bottom path. Greedent can get a little more aggressive moving into the enemy central area, but I think all of them are pretty incredible, right? I'm trying to rank them a little bit against each other, but as you can see, like, I just think they're, as a role, like, extremely good. Let's move on to, let's do supports. Why not? Let's do supports next. I'll just start bringing them up here. Another role that I think is kind of broken in the game. I feel like they've made defenders and supports a little too good at times, but in some ways I think that's ideal, because otherwise I don't think a lot of players would be picking them, right? They're not super hard carry roles, but they are incredible Pokemon. The most broken supports in the game feel like, from like a purely like supporting the team perspective, I think Blissey, like with Helping Hand Safeguard, feels like one of the more broken supports, I think. But boy, these are all so good. Like, Eldie's insane. I think Clefable is quite good. I think Comfey is broken right now because there are broken Pokemon in the game, and it just enables broken Pokemon. I think Alchemy's pretty good, probably here with Clefable. I think Psyduck is maybe close to our S tier. It's really good. It's either S or A. It's kind of like hanging out with all these defenders right here. Hoopa's insane. I think on this map, Sableye is extremely good. As a tank, I think Mime and Wiggly are extremely good. The only one I'd probably put into our B tier is Latias. And it's still good. It just, the issue with Latias, I find, and I'll talk about each supporter here more in depth in just a second, right? But the issue I really find with Latias is it doesn't get its support moves until later in the game, so it doesn't seem to have as much value. It kind of performs like a little bit of an attacker early. It has okay secure in lane. It's not bad or anything, and I actually really like its playstyle, but I feel like only having Mist Ball or Dragon Cheer as its support move is a little underwhelming. I wish its like first move did something for your allies as well. Dragon Breath kind of does with special defense reduction, but yeah, in general, I think it's fine. When you take a look at this, Blissey and Clefable, did I say Clefable? Blissey and Comfey, both really good. The Safeguard Shield's insane, Bliss Assistance is insane, and Comfey right now I feel like is extremely good, especially considering there seems to be just a lot of fighting all over the map. And if you can like kind of juice a particular Pokemon to get a level advantage, they can just keep their pressure on the opponents and really never let up. And when things are broken, this thing is always better and seen more. Psyduck, one of the best tanks in the game. It's like right in here with all these tanks, maybe even better than some of them. It's so dang good. It's listed as a support, but it's a tank like defender. LD, Hoopa, incredible range damage, recovery, macro with Hoopa, just two unbelievably good Pokemon and really good in lane. Clefable, aka Comfey. Strong, really strong for team fights, can create a bit of a death ball that's very difficult to deal with for the enemy team. Follow Me, also extremely good. Alchemy used to probably be up here in our S tier for a little while. I still think it's really good, but they have nerfed it, and it's since then I think it's just a solid Pokemon that is no longer completely broken. Sableye, really good on this map. In solo queue, I think one of the worst Pokemon in a lot of ways, because you don't know if your allies are going to follow up on a lot of the opportunities you create. However, I do think on this map, Sableye is really good. The more coordinated you are, the more busted I think Sableye is. And then you have Mime, Wiggly, two extremely good tanks that are kind of hanging out here with the rest of the A tier defenders. Really strong in lane. One of the great things about all of the Pokemon we're looking at here in support and defender is they are all good in lane, which is awesome. I mean, like, some small exceptions, I guess you could say, like, I don't think Latias is unbelievably good, but it still has good secure and 2 ranged moves, so you can deal some damage and annoy your opponents, right? And on this new map, I find that Pokemon that are good in lane and don't get beat in an extreme way really help your team. Also, every single one of these Pokemon that we've talked about here in the support and defender could easily run EXP share. I would say 90% of them, it's probably mandatory, right? They're just too good, and you wouldn't want to have them without it. And they also don't farm extremely well. Like, they have good last hitting, but they don't have great farming. So I think all of these are great EXP share candidates to power up the next couple roles here that we're going to talk about. Attackers and all-rounders, who are more often found in lane, right? Where do we want to go first? Let's go with attackers here. Start bringing them up to our tier list. And I'm putting them all in the C tier right here. And that's true. They're all bad. No. there are a few really good attackers in the meta. My opinion on attackers are, overall, they are not crushing it right now, but there are a few really, really good ones here. And there are some that are still, like, pretty decent, even though I don't think that's the absolute best role in the game currently. In general, I think attackers are competing, a few specifically, are competing for the central area with all-rounders and speedsters in a really interesting way, right? Obviously, there are 5 Pokemon on a team. 2 go top, 2 go bottom, and 1 goes in the center. And there are a lot of Pokemon that would love that center right now so they can get a ton of experience. Let's kind of start with our mages here, because there are a few mages that are doing extremely well. And then we'll move on to some of our other attackers also. Delphox. Delphox feels like either A+ or S on the map currently. I don't think it's bannable by any means, so I would kind of keep it out of our S tier category, maybe, but it's really crushing it. Its late game presence is extremely powerful. It does need experience to get online, which is one of its biggest issues. When I made my first tier list on the Groudon map, I thought Delphox would not be doing well, and to be honest, I was mostly thinking about the Fire Spin build, but it looks like its carry build is actually doing really well on the new map. So, this is probably A+ or S. The only issue I have with Delphox is it's hard to give it the central area because I think its early gank is bad, but it's not terrible, and it getting its experience is extremely valuable. Another extremely good one, Armarouge. Whether you're playing the Fire Spin build or now even the Armor Cannon build, both of them are doing really well on the new map. Another kind of mage-like Pokemon doing extremely well is Alolan Raichu. Again, the reason I'm keeping them out of my S tier is I don't think any of them are bannable. Like, I'm not too worried about it. The Pokemon I have in my S tier right here, I probably wouldn't ban Dodrio unless I thought someone on the other enemy team was a great Dodrio. I also probably wouldn't ban Scyther, but I would rather ban them over something like these attackers right here. I do think each one of them are extremely good, and if you did, like, target ban one of them, I don't think that would be crazy either. Moving on to the rest of our mages here. Let's see. Candle's okay. I'm going to say it's B tier. Not bad, no mobility, and you really don't ever run at center, so it needs to get online in lane. However, if it's with a decent EXP share ally, it can stop your opponents from stacking, and once it gets online, pretty dang powerful. Cramorant, I think, is also kind of in this area. It does a little better on the new map because it's harder to get away in the central area fights from Cramorant's Unite move now, and I do think Dive is pretty good on it. I could hear an argument that maybe it's closer to our A tier with the Dive build. Pika seems good to me, like B tier, it seems fine. Pretty good in lane, which is really nice, but starts to fall off near the end of the match and just seems to get picked off a lot of the time. Same thing with the Alolan Ninetales. I like both of these Pokemon a lot. They're both strong in lane, but as the match goes on, I think they lose a little bit of value here. What are some other mages? Miraidon is an interesting one because Miraidon is another one of the few attackers doing really well on the map. Electro Drift, kind of not playing much like an attacker, right? It sort of plays like almost a speedster in an interesting way. I think that's the strongest build, but I do think Charge Beam is still pretty dang good. Miraidon's also pretty tanky, which I think helps it out a bit, but the mobility is really nice on it. Venusaur, another attacker doing pretty well. The Solar Beam build, doing well. It's really powerful. And even its Petal Dance build is strong here. So I think all of these attackers are sort of the top tier attackers that you're going to find in the game. Another mage, Guardy, I think is fine. I don't love it, don't hate it. I think it's bad in lane. I also think it's kind of bad in the central area. If you have a team supporting it, it gets a lot more value. Without a team supporting it, it's just, I don't think it's, I don't know. It's hard for it to get away from things. Its early ganks are like, it feels like they're like a coin flip. They either go really well or really poorly, and it just depends on how foolish your opponents are to kind of walk into a Psyshock or something like that. And yeah, I don't think it's crushing it on the map, but if your team doesn't have an attacker and it's in lane with the XP share, it can get going and do pretty well. Let's see. I guess Empoleon is also kind of in this conversation. I think Intel's fine. I don't love it on the new map. It's fine. I think Latios is probably A tier. I might be overrating Latios a little bit. It definitely got nerfed and it's not what it was. But I do think I don't know. It's tough too because it needs its level 5. But almost the tricky thing with all of these attackers really is they need something in lane that's not stealing away all their experience, or they will be under-leveled forever, which is a bit of a mess. But Latios, it starts getting better and better as the match goes on and you're building up more of your stacks. And then by the end of the game, it's a bit of a monster. Okay, let's quickly talk about Mewtwo Y. Mewtwo Y, I can't put down in the Decidueye Memorial tier, even though its win rate is abysmal. I don't think it's that bad. I just think no one's playing this thing right now. I actually think it's probably decent, but I'm going to keep it in our C tier because I never see anyone play it. Mew, I think, is really good. Mew I would put into our A tier. Really solid secure, and in the hands of a good player, Mew is very powerful. I think Espeon is fine. It kind of hangs out with these other attackers. I think it's actually a little maybe underrated, even on my own tier list here. But I can't really make a great case that it's much higher than this. The nice thing is it doesn't need a lot to get online. So it only needs level 4 to get a really powerful move, as opposed to, some of these Pokemon like Gardevoir or something, they need kind of like level 7 before they're really doing some impressive stuff. Kind of 5, but, they need a lot more than Espeon. Greninja, I still think is quite good. It's kind of like for the first time in a while dipped in win rate a little bit, but I do think Greninja is still really solid. Its issue is some of the issues that the other attackers have, which is it's fighting over the central area with a lot of Pokemon right now. I don't even mind running it in lane, to be honest. I think it's really solid once it gets going, and it doesn't have the worst secure in that early bubble attack, but it also isn't fantastic. Again, if you're not in a supportive lane, something with EXP share with good secure, you're going to have a tough time with a Pokemon like this. And running at center is fine if there isn't anyone else on your team looking to do it. Cinder kind of hangs out in this category too. I think Cinder is good. It needs a lot of XP, so it's also fighting for center with a ton of Pokemon. However, if it can get it and get online, it's pretty strong. Sylveon feels fine to me. It's okay. It's annoying and difficult for opponents to deal with sometimes, and it doesn't need a lot of XP. Decidueye, good. Actually, the weird thing about Deci is I think it's way better than it's played. Like, it's probably actually one of the better attackers in the game. It's just, if you have no allies, this thing is a nightmare to play, and it's so easy to punish. So, it's like, in high-level play with, like, support, it's actually crazy good, I think. In low-level play, it's like, first off, your allies are the worst. It's one of the worst played Pokemon in the game. You're going to have some of the worst Decidueye players on either side. If you see one on the other side, you're eating good. If you see one on your side, it's using its Unite move on Groudon for no reason. Like, it's one of the worst played Pokemon and really easy to exploit, so I'm going to keep it B. Dura's fine. It's fine. I'll put it B. Glaceon's good. Glaceon's B. It might even be close to A. Glaceon's pretty dang good. Dragapult, solo Q Demon. You could see it a little higher, but I think Greninja and Cinder are just a little better right now. And then I'm going to keep Mewtwo Y in our C tier. As I said before, you're going to have a lot of Pokemon that are kind of here near the middle. I think these are all fine choices that there's nothing really that are like I'm freaking out about in this entire B tier. They're all fine. They're not bad. They're all fine. We'll talk more about Jungle later, which is like some of these Pokemon could do better in it, but I also think it's really tough because I don't want them to have Jungle. There are ton of other Pokemon I'd rather see in the Jungle. And now let's move on to our all-rounders here. We have Empoleon, our newest addition. Palmot was just added to the game too, like very recently, so there's a lot to talk about here. Okay, where to begin? Let's begin kind of near the bottom. Azumarill. I thought Azumarill would be doing better on this new map, and I have to say, its win rate isn't incredible, and every time I've played it, or even played against it, I feel like it's been really underwhelming. I thought its early level 4 and some of the pressure it has would be actually pretty good, but I think the old map actually suited it a little better for whatever reason. Like, I have not found much success with this Pokemon at all. Another one that I think is really tough for the all-rounders is Gyarados. Gyarados feels bad on this new map. It just feels terrible. Okay, in the old map, it felt like you had a little more time and things were a little, like, sort of safer for Gyarados. It also felt like people were running and stacking more on the old map. In the new map, I feel like being bad in lane is such a liability, and Gary is quite bad. Yeah, I also feel like ganks are coming from the center really, really fast sometimes, and you're just in a bad position. And me personally, I have not enjoyed playing Gyarados on the new map at all. I think it's really, really rough. Another C tier. There are a few that I think are kind of close, but I don't know if they fully make it. Definitely Mewtwo X is probably the other one that would be here in the C tier, and it's just because both Mewtwo's kind of need a little love right now, but I also think they're not being played a ton. I think they're maybe okay, but we probably just don't see them a ton. I'll put them right next to each other so you guys can see that the Mewtwo's are not having the greatest time. The rest of the all-rounders in the game I think are at least better than C tier. They're all pretty dang good. I think we can kind of head towards the top of the tier list a bit too. We'll just bounce around here. Garchomp. I think Garchomp is really solid. Good in lane. Its auto attacks are just good. You get good secure. You also pick up surprising KOs with this Pokemon when opponents stand next to you for too long. And once you get online, you're really strong and you farm really fast with Garchomp. So I like Garchomp. I would say it's probably A tier. I think Machamp is good. Machamp is maybe even a little better than I'm putting it right here in the B tier. I think it's solid. It's solid right now. Not bad at all. And has good secure in lane. Feels like it's doing pretty good. Lucario, I think, is probably A. Maybe even A+. Lucario is really good. And I think a lot of people are having success with it. It has good secure and great mobility in lane. That's where you'd want to play it. Charizard used to be higher, but I'm going to put it into our A tier right now. It used to be S, and they nerfed it. We have Mega Char coming, so I'm interested to see kind of what that looks like, but I think Char is pretty incredible. It's like hanging out here. It's maybe like the top of A. Maybe like a little better than some of these other ones. I think Lucario is probably better than Garchomp here. Zarina is S or A+. The interesting thing about this is you're seeing it played more in the center area, so it can get online really fast and get like an early win and then just start dominating. It's a little worse in lane, which is weird, but it used to play more in lane with an EXP share support and do a bit better. I still think you can play there, but I've seen it played more center, and it's crushing it right now. Another one that you kind of see center doing the same thing is Blaziken. They just move center, they get their 5 early, they come to lane, and they're a bit of a menace at that first fight, and then they take that experience lead and just start winning the match. I think these are two insanely good all-rounders right now, and yeah, I think I'm going to keep them in our S tier. I think one that's close for me is Water Bear. Water Bear also really good, just at level 5, walking in, doing an insane amount of damage, and shutting their opponents down as much as possible. Suicune is probably still S tier for me. It's been S tier for a while. I think this Pokemon is ludicrously good. It's played more as a support than it is played as an all-rounder. Like, it doesn't resemble any of the other all-rounders. I just think its background is purple so it could sell more around being a legendary, right? Because I think it's essentially like a support, maybe kind of a defender, right? But I do think it's extremely good. Pawmot, recent addition, I think is probably A. It's good, not great. It's like really good, but it's not broken or anything like that. And I do think it's only like one of its biggest downfalls is it only has one move set that's good in my opinion. That's Punch Punch, Thunder Punch, and Mach Punch. But I do think for that move set, it's pretty dang solid, and it works okay in lane. It's all right in center. Cerulege is one that I actually have been liking more and more. Another A tier all-rounder, in my opinion. Can be played either in lane or in center. It clears really fast once it hits that first break point. So that, I think, is nice. Every Cerulege game I play, I feel like I'm ending at level 15 just because of how easy it is to farm the map with this Pokemon. Another A tier, I think Aegislash is A. You could maybe say it's closer to B. The issue with it being any higher is so many all-rounders are good, and I'm kind of comparing them to each other, but I think it's absolutely in the conversation of a very strong all-rounder. Takes a little longer to get online, and it doesn't really have as much benefit from playing center, but I do think it's really strong. Buzz is another one. I can't put Buzz any lower than A. I don't know if I can, well, it might be A+ on the map. It's close. It's close for me. It's so dang good early. It's so tough to deal with. Yeah, I think I am gonna put it A+. I am gonna put it a little higher. The nice thing about Buzz too is it's not competing with the center. It really wants to be in lane and win, and it does that extremely well. Dragonite is a sneaky A+. This one is all because of Hyper Beam. Hyper Beam, I think, is just like really good on the new map. The interesting thing about Dragonite is, I think in general, it's really slow and kind of annoying to get online. But I think Hyper Beam Dragon Dance is so dang good with multiple objectives popping up. I also think its Unite move is really good on this map in particular because the macro ability of it to just move to the next thing that's important, I think, is extremely strong. I think this is a sneaky A+ tier level Pokemon. Zacian, extremely good. Also hanging out in our A+ tier, kind of like near the top here. Maybe all the way to S. So strong in lane, and things that are strong in lane are great right now. Dark Bear is an interesting one. I don't see it much. I kind of wonder if it's like maybe closer to B here with Machamp, like a really good one. But I really just don't see it as much, and I feel like a big reason for that is the like prevalence of Water Bear. Water Bear just seems to be more common. Just going to fix my tier list here so everybody can see it easier. I think Water Bear, just more common, a little more solid right now. And I for that reason, I don't think you see Dark Bear as much. And also, I don't love giving Urshifu the center unless it's Water Bear because it's going to come in and brawl in a crazy way. Scizor is fine. I'd say it's probably B. Not amazing. I think way worse than Scyther. Yes, it comes out of like jungle at the same speed, but as the match goes on, I think you kind of want the speedster capability of Scyther as opposed to the sort of brawling capability of Scizor. Still not terrible and decent in lane. Mimikyu, I'd say, is probably A. The interesting thing about the new map, losing some of the grass, is I thought Shadow Sneak would be hindered in a big way, but I actually don't think so. I think this Pokemon is still really good, especially in uncoordinated games where it can carry super hard, right? Metagross, really solid, hanging out in A as well. The thing about Metagross is it's got good secure early, and then once it hits 5, it's really annoying for your opponents to deal with. And if they don't have any ranged damage, it's kind of hard to deal with a good Metagross. I like it a lot. I'm going to put it here in A. Maybe it's a little closer to B. I don't know. I think it's really strong. Phalanx. I have to put Phalanx in B, but I don't think Phalanx is bad. I just think Phalanx is super counterable. So it's tricky to pick this Pokemon in draft because if your opponent has like time to counter it, like Venusaur, Lucario, Pawmot like charges its Unite move in a super annoying way against it. I'm sure Empoleon can do some annoying things with Whirlpool against the Phalanx. Like, I do not think it's bad. I just think it's very counterable. Tink is kind of in this same boat here. I love playing Tink right now, but I do think it takes a lot. It takes a lot to get online. And the question is, can you outsecure your opponents for a bit? Do you have something in lane to help you power up? If you do, and your opponents want to brawl with you so you can get your hammer stacks, this thing is amazing. If you don't, and your opponents are just like, they have better secure, you're laning with like a weak ally, like someone wants to pick like the third attacker on the team and you're laning with them, like you could have a really tough time with Tink for that reason. T-Tar, I feel like, is kind of in the same boat. Both good, both need more experience. One thing I have noticed is I feel like I'm making it to my end game as level 13 T-Tar just about every single time. The only thing that's a problem is there are just times where your opponents don't need to fight. And if your opponents don't need to fight and you have no support, I just don't find Tyranitar to be that impactful in some of the late game fights. I also think it's awful in center. Some people want to put it there to get some experience early, but it's still so slow. Even if you're putting it center, I really don't like it there. So I think it's okay. And now finally we have Empoleon. And this might shock you, but I think Empoleon's probably closer to A tier right now. After the nerfs, no, I'm kidding. This thing is broken. So Empoleon's crazy. Day 1 of Empoleon was absurd. I think day 2 of Empoleon is way more reasonable, while this still being probably the strongest thing in the game. I want to see how its win rate and ban rate starts to shake out as the weeks go on. I actually think it's closer to S than people know, but I still think it could use nerfs to be more in line with other S tier Pokemon on the roster. It is the best thing, it feels like, in the entire game, but it's not day 1 Empoleon. Day 1 Empoleon is, I don't know what they were doing. I have no, like, truly, what were they doing with day 1 Empoleon? I have no idea. It makes no sense. This thing was play tested by some like some of the Japanese like influencers and pro players and stuff like that. I don't know what feedback they took from it, but this is one of the more absurd releases. Like, I know it was like a day, and I'm glad they addressed it really quickly, but I have no idea what they were thinking with this thing. It's still really, really, really strong, but it's not what it was, which was borderline one of the most broken things. Like, truly, the day 1 Empoleon release was up there with Zacian and Mewtwo Y, Mewtwo X. Like, it was one of the most broken releases we have had. Now, moving forward, it's still, without question, something that should be banned in every single game that you can ban. It is a strong pick all the time. It can play center or lane. I kind of like it in lane. Its secure is incredible with water gun, so I don't think you need it in center, but getting that early level 5 is not bad at all. And as you can see, we have no Pokemon, I really don't think, in the Decidueye Memorial tier. Probably the closest for me are the 2 Mewtwo's and Gyarados, but even those I think are all very, very playable. Okay. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the tier list and you're saying, Jake, I'm still confused how the central area works. I've seen a Chris Heroes tier list, and seeing that division really worked for me. I can't understand ranks otherwise. I get it. Look, even some of our best players out there can't understand a tier list without it being broken up like this. But let's take a look at what I think the jungle looks like right now. Okay, so what I have right here is a look at the jungle in general. Every single Pokemon in this no area are Pokemon that I would never take in the central area for any reason, really. I don't think any of them need it at all. Like Gary, Suicune, Pika, like all of these attackers I don't think need it. None of the all-rounders, none of the junglers, and none of the defenders, which are all junglers now, and none of the supporters. I wouldn't play any of these in the central area. Now, as I move up to the okay sorta area, these are all Pokemon that could do decently well with the center area, but I actually think are totally fine in lane, and you probably don't need to give it to them. A few that could maybe move up to the great category, like Guard. I think there's a great argument for Gardevoir in the center. I think it's better than having it in lane. I just think there are so many better center area Pokemon right now. I would rather have something in the great category in center. So is Gardevoir better with more experience? Yes. Would I rather have Gardevoir in the center, or would I rather have fill in the blank, anything from this top row in the center? And the answer is I'd rather have anything from the top row in the center. However, that's probably where you want guard, which is a tricky position for a Pokemon to be in, which is why Gardevoirs hang out in my B tier. Something like Venusaur, on the other hand, I don't think it's bad in center. However, I think it's good enough in lane that you don't need to put it in center. And a lot of these Pokemon actually fill in that. Like, yes, Zacian can do okay in the center, but it's so good in lane, why would you want it there? Or a Pokemon like Buzzwole. Yeah, it could do okay in center, but it does great in lane. Same thing with Lucario, Machamp, like all these Pokemon do just fine. Galarian Rapidash is an interesting one for me. I actually think it does so good in lane that while you could give it center and give it that early experience, its secure is amazing. I actually love playing it in lane. And then as we move up to our great tier here, these are all Pokemon that either excel having that central area experience and do really well with it, or they kind of need it, right? So I do think Cinderace and Greninja can be played in lane. And sometimes I think they maybe should be, but they really need a lot of experience to get online, and this is where they get it. Kind of the same thing with Delphox here. I actually think Alolan Raichu should probably be played in lane, but it's so powerful right now that it coming from center at level 5 with its first move is really, really incredible. I could see why you'd want to play it there. All of these all-rounders I think are fantastic. A lot of them really good in lane and a lot of them really good in center, which is why they're hanging out here in my great category. Same thing with these speedsters. So Dodrio I think is only in great because it's also really great in lane. It's secure is just, it's not hard to win lane with Dodrio, or at least compete, and you only need to hit 5. Gengar is only here because, while I think it's meh in lane, I also don't think it's the best speedster in the game. Same thing with Zeraora. Zoroark, on the other hand, you could maybe make an argument that it's kind of perfect in center, right? It's really strong and could use that extra experience there. Darkrai I like in lane. Fine. I think it's fine, and you can just hit level 5 in lane. Meowscarada kind of needs center, and it's pretty dang good, but I don't love it on this map. And then you have the perfect category. I think these Pokemon could also be played in lane. All of them are essentially speedsters, but I think some of these are just so dang good right now. Like Scyther's Clear is insane. Absol is my favorite center area Pokemon in the game currently. But anything in these top 3 categories is definitely playable in the center. I like things in the top 2 more than the others. And then everything in the bottom here, I don't think there's any reason you would ever put it in the central area ever. It either doesn't need it or doesn't take good advantage of it. So there you go. This is the part of the tier list that Chris Heroes can understand. Play these in the center, Chris. Don't play these in the center. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I love y'all. I'll see you next time. We did it.